data subject request is different than consent?
Data subject request is different than consent. So consent informs your processing activities.
Okay.
Processing activities are pretty much anything you do with data. So you've got data stored in your Salesforce org or elsewhere, most likely. We're really here to talk about Salesforce today. You got your data stored and you're using it for something, right? Mm-hmm. So what GDPR states is that each of those individuals or data subjects or natural persons or whatever you want to call it today, human entities, dads, each dad or mom or sister, all those data subjects, they have the right to have you not process their information unless they have specifically consented to the type of processing you're doing. So types of processing could be marketing, sales, fulfillment of your product, billing, invoicing, things like that. They need to consent to that stuff. There are some very specific carve-outs for things that you just have to do business, right? So it's not it's not the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, right? That was part one, by the way. You're gonna really enjoy that one.
I was gonna bring that out later.
Oh, sorry, buddy. But that's what it's not, right? And so it's not this big scary thing that's like, hey, I can't do business anymore, right? But what it is a regulation that helps enforce that people have rights, and specifically that their data is an extension of themselves. I shouldn't say specifically, that's kind of my version. So the information about them is an extension of who they are, right? So it extends their basic human rights to that level. That's my take on it, at least. Again, not an attorney, just somebody who's read the 88 pages several times.
So if you address and align with consent, you don't check the box for GDPR. Just make sure I heard that right.
It's a box.
It's a box. It's an important one, a very important one, but not the only.
But not the only box. And so another box we're here to talk about today is data subject request handling. So another right that GDPR does give those data subjects is the right to request their information for a few different reasons. So portability, which is really just the ability for them to kind of see all the information that they have in that you have about them, as well as the ability for them to then transfer that information to a different service. And all that really means is that you have the ability to provide all the information you have about that person in a commonly accepted computerized format, which is, in general, most people just consider it a CSV. And then right of erasure. This is kind of the headline item, right? This is what you see on all the newspapers, and you'll see them talk about on the news, the right to be forgotten. Right, so it's the ability to say, hey, yeah, you have all this information on me. I don't want you to have that information on me. And again, you don't have to cripple your business with this, right? There are carve-outs for specific business purposes that you can still retain that information. So bear that in mind. And then the right of rectification or modification, so or correction. And so you'll see a lot of folks where they look at the data that they've requested from you, you provide it to them, and they say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, cool and everything, but my birth date's wrong on this, or I don't want you to actually store my birth date unless you have a really good business reason for it, things like that. So just modifying the information in the system. So those are a few types of data requests. We also are seeing a lot of people focus on anonymization as a strategy for the right to be forgotten. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we start looking into how Privacy Pat can help.
Privacy Pat?
Oh, yeah. Privacy Pat. Yeah. Privacy Pat, you're pumped. But so we'll talk a little bit more about how anonymization can help with the right to be forgotten today. And again, not lawyers. We spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people about this, especially folks with legal teams that are constantly trying to figure out what's the best strategy. And so we'll talk about some of the stuff we've learned there today.